Cut to the chase. This is a brief clip from the YoJoe Show Podcast, where we dive into everything: politics, tech, aviation, space, science, health, and medicine. Stick around for conversation that clips right to what matters.
These episodes suppressed too by the YouTube algorithm for that exact reason. It's not far from home.
And it's nonsense. Again, no one, if someone's calling to incite violence or what have you, that's different. But that isn't what's happening. And to have a different point of view isn't violence. In fact, that's the whole idea of our country, was that people could openly speak and criticize their government. And that is one of the constitutionally protected things, is to basically point out to your government the things you disagree with. There were a number of things in this last clip that I think should be pointed out. And again, to not turn that into a 2-hour-long compilation, we had a short clip from TMZ, and there was some controversy this week. Harvey Levin, who's the gentleman who jumped out of his chair and was surprised about the news. The thing at TMZ is they run cameras in all the rooms. They're always running cameras there. That's their thing, live streaming everything. News as it happens, and that's why they get a lot of great news feeds and car chases and all this other stuff. But literally at the moment that it was announced that Charlie Kirk had died, you could hear cheering in the background, loud cheering, celebration. Well, it didn't take long for people online to push back at TMZ and say, what is going on over there? What's wrong with you people? So Harvey and one of his pals made a public statement saying, listen, all I can say is the people in the back room, they were watching a car chase, and I know them, and they're all good people, and they would never be celebrating such a thing. All the online sleuths basically hunted down whatever car chase was going on at the time. And there was a very benign, boring, I saw the car chase that was happening, and they even put the exact time, and they put everything matched up. And literally what had happened is, while they were watching the car chase, the announcer announcing the car chase on the news station basically stopped and mentioned that Charlie Kirk had died. And they cheered. So, again, there's been a lot of heat to TMZ. I don't think that Harvey is that kind of guy. I don't think a couple of the people within the organization are like that. He tried to protect his people by saying, oh, no, they wouldn't do that. But
Yeah,
my
and you
take...
see when he was jumping up, I was watching and I was trying to see what way he was taking it, and it mostly seemed shock. He didn't seem like he was celebrating. He was jumping up in shock. Just shows the level of shock we all experienced when we heard the news.
And it wasn't that video. There's lots of other video because they have so much streaming. So I watched the video. I watched what the other guys were watching, or the people in the back were watching, supposedly. But oddly, there is no video of the people in that other room watching the video, which I think there's a camera in there. But somehow that video disappeared. So bottom line is, I think Harvey tried to fix things, but it shows that there's people at TMZ that work for him that also celebrated this. There was the woman that we had on the video. There's been other posts about her. The gentleman that worked at Microsoft. The sad part is he said, sorry, not sorry. He says, how I feel. He says, what I believe. And again, then you have the Martin County schools talking about, here in Florida, how, they're taking action. People need to understand, free speech means you can openly speak without criminal retribution. You're not going to be jailed for saying something that's your opinion. But we don't necessarily want doctors, nurses, paramedics that have that sort of view of people, that they're happy that anyone dies. Just like in Israel, how many times do Israeli doctors treat people that just tried to kill them a minute earlier, tried to bomb them or what have you? They will take those patients.
They terrorist life after every terror attack.
They will give them the best possible care because it's the right thing to do. That's what you do when you work in the healthcare field. Same thing. So if you're in law enforcement, if you're a firefighter, if you're a teacher, you can have whatever private views, but you certainly can't openly speak and tell people that you think it's okay that someone is assassinated in our country. You think that's okay? And the reality
Teachers were
is,
a big problem. There were a lot of teachers in front of their classes basically celebrating this and talking to their students about how good this was. And it just shows the level of education and the indoctrination in the kind of the board of educators. It's just screwed up. It's beyond repair. I think if you're a normal parent, you should put your children in private school or homeschool them. There's a reason why those things are on the up and up, and it's because in most states, the education goes against what the people of the state believe in, against what the people of America agree upon.
We touched upon this on one of our episodes. AI is taking over. Eventually, teaching as we know it will go away. We just hope the AI won't have this incredible bias slant. I think if someone says, look, I didn't agree with someone's point of view, but that has nothing to do with someone being assassinated. Nobody should expect or want that. And it just was mentioned also about Tim Walz, who was a vice presidential candidate and is a governor currently, to even joke about the president of the United States dying. Who does that? The other thing that we hear talked about repeatedly is, oh, we got to tone down the rhetoric. This is all the news pundits. We got to tone down the rhetoric on both sides, on both sides. It's not on both sides. Charlie Kirk gets assassinated by some left-wing person, and people are praying. People are doing prayer circles. People are talking about free speech and carrying on his legacy. It's not like what happened a number of years ago where entire cities were being burnt to the ground and people were being murdered in the streets. Didn't happen. The left does that, not the right. It isn't the same. And what's odd is when you hear this, everyone tries to normalize, oh, it's just on both sides. Oh, yeah, I agree. It's like asking for peace in the Middle East. Okay. Sounds great, but it doesn't fix the underlying problem that you have one group of people in Gaza that, basically believe that they want to exterminate another group of people in Israel. And they openly saying that as a stated, mission. So how can you think that
Watching those protests in the US are exactly like you mentioned with the Antifa protests, where you see cities burning. Every time there's a pro-Palestine protest, flags burning, American flags burning, destruction, you see them just flipping over cars, burning things. Every time, like you mentioned, prayer, every time you see the pro-Israel side protesting, it's circles of prayer, it's dancing, it's singing, it's crying, you know what I mean? And the difference between the two sides is very remarkable.
Yeah, so it isn't this sort of talk, certainly in the media, to try to act. And again, politicians on the left, that's what they say. Oh, we have to definitely make sure that what are the two things? That we need to stop having the violent rhetoric on both sides, even though there's really not a whole lot on the right. Not that there's not been any right-wing extremists ever, but it certainly isn't the norm. And then the other thing is that there's this sort of, and how can I put it? It's almost okay. Their favorite topic is let's do gun control. And
The solution for every problem.
yeah, again, like it's not the answer. If you have a lot of car accidents, getting rid of all the cars is probably not the right answer. The answer would be let's find out why there's so many car accidents in that city or in that state. Why does that state have more car accidents than other ones? There must be a reason. And again, when we learn that states that have very strict and cities with very strict gun laws have a lot of violent gun crime. And why is that? Because criminals don't follow the law. So there are laws that say don't murder. You don't need another law for that. It's on the books already. So it's not about passing laws. It is about, as you alluded to earlier, enforcing the laws. You discourage further offenses by making sure a person pays a significant price when they break the law. Again, maybe give them a break the first time, but not the 13th time. Okay, maybe not. That's just a little much. And I think that's the issue. Patterns of violence, often, as you said, by the same people over and over again until it hits a boiling point. And then you go, what could have we done? We know what you could have done. And again, if there was some accountability that would be subject to the politicians and the judges that are making these decisions, maybe there would have been a different outcome on some of those cases because they would feel liable. They would feel responsible for what's done. And
They have to have responsibility for their actions as well.
they should. They should, but nothing ever happens for the most part. So the thought that we're just going to control guns and that's going to fix everything is just misguided. And like we talked about in our last episode, in Australia, in Victoria, the state of Victoria, they now, as of September 1st, they outlawed machetes because people were using machetes. And there was actually in Texas, I think in the Dallas area, there was actually a guy beheaded his boss, beheaded him. What is
Over a fight on a washing machine or something.
Yes, yeah, broken washing machine. Ultimately, it's not about the guns.
It was an illegal immigrant, worth noting. That culture of beheading people isn't common in the United States. That's a culture of somebody the Biden administration deliberately imported to this country, because their position was to deliberately import voters, and those voters, illegal, act sometimes that way because they come from cultures where that beheading people is normal. That's not here.
Given what happened with Charlie Kirk, I guess we have some people here who have some problems as well. So I would take a step back and simply say, yes, anybody from anywhere, whether they're multi-generation US citizens, whether they've come from another country, if the ideology is such that it's okay to kill people and it's no big deal, that's a problem. That's not how we view life here. That's not how we view right and wrong here. So that's not the answer, saying we need no guns. Again, if there was a crowd of people that saw someone on the roof and it was something other than a school and they actually were armed, I'm pretty sure there would be someone that would probably stop that person from even getting away. It's typically, violence is often conducted in places where there'll be minimal retribution or opposition. So if there's somewhere where the other people you're attacking or the victims are not armed, clearly, or they're sitting duck because they're out there speaking, as Charlie Kirk was, that's why they do it. It's not because they're some tough guy or whatever, because this guy ran away. He didn't sit there and said, I did it. No, he ran off.
Yeah. He
Hoping,
didn't commit suicide either.
no, hoping to get away.
And his transgender boyfriend was supposed to go and get the gun, but never did.
Listen, there was a request, and that's the whole thing. This transitioning boyfriend to girlfriend, which now is apparently cooperating with police. There's some question as to their ideological views, mental stability, and all this other stuff, how much they knew in advance. But yeah, on, I think, Discord, they were being asked to go and retrieve the weapon which was left behind. And it is in the police report that I did see that now has been made public, which shows that the police interviewed that individual and they showed the messages on their screen and the police obtained those messages. So
a lot of people have been radicalized on Discord recently. A lot of these shooters, unfortunately, recently have been radicalized. These school shooters, something's going on in Discord. I think that's owned by Microsoft. So I really hope that firing this asshole behind the equity, inclusion, whatever department of Microsoft. That was the kicker. He said that he was fired. It was like, okay, maybe you got what you deserved. But the minute he said that he was behind that, it's okay. Microsoft hopefully is going to start cleaning house, because this is unacceptable. I think the crime of Charlie Kirk, the crime for which he was murdered, was the fact that he was the most effective person on planet Earth of changing the mind of college kids. And he was going against the indoctrination that was indoctrinating college kids into the mindset that murdering people for what they say is fine. He was at the forefront of this battle, and he succeeded more than anybody else. And I think that's one of the main reasons why he was killed, is because he was there holding up the water on his own, holding the gate, the floodgate. And the person said, empathy is over. We were always expected to be empathetic to anybody with a mental illness, anybody who doesn't feel well, anybody who threatens to commit suicide. It's funny because empathy is the core of what makes us who we are. But it reminds me of that sentence of good times create weak men, bad times create strong men create good times. And it's just the cycle of life, right? So we have been kind, friendly to all of the quote unquote marginalized in society. That tends to be the criminals. Of course, not all marginalized people are criminals. That's not what I'm trying to say. Is that the idea of empathy to those marginalized criminals is behind what has been going on. We let the weak men be in control and cause bad times. And it's time that we stop that. It's time that strong men stand up and create good times again, because only strong men can create good times. That empathy is over. I've got no empathy for the Microsoft employee that was fired. It turns out that Microsoft also runs one of the largest gaming, like Ubisoft, or one of the largest kind of gaming companies in the world. And basically all of the employees there were cheering and celebrating. And basically Microsoft really has to clean house, and I really hope that they do. But one thing that really hit me was the fact that on TV, MSNBC were blaming him for his own death. And this was a recurring motive by a lot of the
Right.
people who were interviewed is, oh, it's his fault. He was for the Second Amendment, and that means that he said that there could be consequences for that. And that means that it's good that he got murdered. Different kind of he said that you should be willing to die for free speech, and then he died for free speech. Wow, that's great. That mindset of blaming him for his murder is
One of the things I want to say, like for the record, we're not taking pleasure out of anyone losing their jobs. All right. This isn't about retribution or whatever. We're disgusted that some people are taking seemingly pleasure out of watching someone be assassinated, that someone's father is gone, husband is gone. Guy was 31 years old, going to be 32 next month. That to me is disgusting. But that doesn't mean that we're out. And there are people that are actually compiling websites now that are hunting on social media for these posts, putting them on there, trying to find out where they work and contacting their employers, or providing a database for the employers to search them out. At what point we want to, I don't know. I just think these people are sick for thinking that way. But what I get out of this is the following. Yeah, for a guy that's been working for 6 years for a company and founded a whole department and all this, to lose their job, yeah, that's sad. And you're losing your job for what? For your free speech. But you just lost your job, which is horrible. But imagine losing your life for doing the same thing, for speaking what you believe in. That to me is the message. The people that are losing their jobs or getting suspended or whatever, it's not about, oh, look, you're getting suspended. Ha, it's not about that. It's about there needs to be consequences. If nothing else, maybe some of these people will stop and think, get counseling, talk to other people, maybe, just maybe start understanding that thinking that way about anybody is wrong, and that some employers and the community at large isn't okay with it. Isn't okay with it. There are people who have odd fetishes, odd this, odd that. We can't control everybody. It's not about that. But don't act like it's normal and be surprised if people push back. And for the last number of years, as I was saying earlier, what was happening? People were being canceled. So in other words, their voices were being extinguished. So they couldn't say what they were saying. Okay. They were being called Nazis, as you were saying. They were being called racist and who knows what else. Everything was thrown at them to silence people's voices. People are fed up with that. In the UK, they're fed up. Australia, they're fed up. The United States, they're fed up. I think a lot of people in Canada are fed up with that. It's gotten so out of hand that people can't point out when there's something that's wrong. And you know what? That's when people are saying they're rising up to tell the truth and say, this was wrong. And to glamorize and think it's okay is wrong. And a lot of employers wouldn't feel comfortable keeping people like that employed by them because it's bad for business. And why would you want to work with someone that feels that way about murdering people? It's insane. So, yeah, that's what's happening. And again, you lose your job, it's sad. Imagine Charlie Kirk losing his life, and Farrakha losing her husband, and the kids losing their dad. I mean, just put it in perspective. Everyone needs to wake up. You have all these people that were woke, but they need to not be woke. They need to actually wake up and understand this is not acceptable.
They
We're
have to be
tired of
woken
it.
up.
We're tired of it. Okay.
Yep.
The majority of people are just fed up with it. Has to stop. You can't just go and threaten to hurt someone or whatever because you don't believe in their point of view. And Don Lemon, who was interviewing people on the street and taking some sort of glee out of this, it seemed it's not normal. And the people that he's talking to, not normal that they think that way, that it's like perfectly okay that someone for their own speech and thoughts gets murdered. It's not normal. So anyhow, that's just something I wanted to say. And it's not that I don't take glee at anyone losing their job or whatever, but I think these people, if nothing else, maybe they're putting a mirror onto themselves to shine a light on really what their thought process is. Maybe they have to, for the first time, reflect on what it really means.
I think these people, like you said, have been living in a bubble for so very long. It's really time for them to wake up, and hopefully, getting fired from their job will be the wake up call that they really need to connect to humanity, to Earth.
Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and watch all our content, including episode 22 of the YoJoe Show podcast.